The phenomenon of the United States interfering in other people's countries continues to this very day, something that has become much more pronounced under the Trump administration. It has now been revealed by officials in Europe that Donald Trump threatened the UK with 25% tariffs on their cars unless the British government officially accused Iran of breaking the 2015 nuclear deal, also known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or the JCPOA. It has been reported. Now, the secret was leaked last week, which was first reported by the Washington Post, which cited unnamed European officials who would have seen the tariff imposed on all European automobiles imported to the U.S. unless Britain, France, and Germany agreed to the ultimatum. In other words, they all had to do it or face tariffs from the United States. So that whole thing about Iran violating the nuclear deal was completely made up. I mean, we already know it was made up, but that the European partners who went along with it did so out of duress. So, in other words, when the lie was not believable, the U.S. had to threaten people into believing it, and then get the faked evidence from Israel, which was completely rejected by the International Atomic Energy Agency and many European countries as well. Think about that. That's where this president is. He deliberately threatened people into agreeing with him in order to spread his lie. That doesn't sound like Trump at all now, does it? Now, this revelation of this act of coercion came days just before the European powers on Tuesday triggered a dispute mechanism under the agreement, which does amount to a formal accusation of Tehran of violating its terms. It could lead to the reinstatement of the United Nations sanctions, but is being framed by the Europeans as the last chance to save the nuclear deal. In other words, this is our last chance to save the nuclear deal. Also, we're going to lie about it. The reason for doing it. So, as the United States completely withdrew from the JCPOA, which I don't know why you would trust America to begin with, falsely accuses Iran of violating the nuclear deal when they didn't, imposed sanctions on them as a measure to hurt them, then the European signatories don't live up to their end of the bargain in making up for the loss of the United States as a member of the JCPOA. They're supposed to give sanction relief, do certain business, etc. to compensate for the loss of the U.S. Well, they haven't done it. So, I mean, literally Iran is sitting at the table alone, the only one who was going along with it. Then they decided that they were going to take the steps which are allowed by the agreement to retaliate for the U.S. leaving. And then Iran gets accused of violating the agreement in areas where they're allowed to deviate from it, which, of course, then isn't actually deviating from it if you're following the rules of it. It's amazing how this works. So all this time, the Europeans have been trying to get Trump to go back into the nuclear deal while doing nothing themselves to actually help. And Iran has been sitting there trying to go back to it. So at this point, what would be your incentive to even meet the United States' terms? You already had an agreement. They wouldn't keep their word, so why would you trust them this time? And the European signatories who said that they would back up Iran if the U.S. pulled out didn't do it. So why would you trust the European signatories? Sorry, but these junior partners of imperialism, Germany, France, the UK, etc., although I would say the UK is probably more than a junior partner in imperialism. What's the point of even going with them? Iran should just build the nuclear weapon and say, okay, if you want a war, you get irradiated. That's it. I mean, what's the point of doing this to protect yourself from sanctions if you're going to get sanctions anyway? There's no point. You might as well just stand by your own autonomy and build nuclear weapons as a deterrent against invasion and attack, as the DPRK has. I mean, the DPRK can show you something about nuclear weapons, and the DPRK can show you something about surviving sanctions. Maybe the Iranian economy isn't meant to handle that kind of economic devastation the way the DPRK is. But I mean, let's face it, there is no honor in the U.S. I mean, they're not going to leave you alone. They are going to do everything they can to destroy you. So what's the point of even negotiating with them? What's the point of even having an economic system based on not being attacked by the US when you're going to be attacked no matter what? I mean, look at it. 200 college and university students protest the Ayatollah, and it's, oh my God, the Iranian masses are rising up against the theocracy. Which it isn't a theocracy, but that's besides the point. But 7 million people come out to Soleimani's funeral to denounce the United States for killing him, and it's not, people don't support the Iranian government, they're not on the side, they agree with what the US did. Really? And that's how the media frames it. At what point should Iran believe anything the United States does? It should reject all of them and do what it can to defend itself and to develop itself the best that it can. And maybe it's going to end up as a country under siege the way the DPRK is. The question is, the U.S. is going to drive them into that position one way or another. What's it going to be? You're going to be independent, or you're going to be a puppet? Because you're going to suffer as a puppet, and you're going to suffer as being independent, trying to deal with an economy that's being destroyed by the U.S. So what's it going to be? Iran has that choice to make. They're going to sell themselves to the U.S., or are they going to maintain their independence and do what's necessary in order to do so? That's a decision that the Iranian people have to make. And I think I know what decision they're willing to stand by. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.